Frequently asked me how did I go about getting my license to carry that handgun. And in New York State, what we have is a concealed carry permit, and it allows you to carry the weapon totally concealed anywhere you want to go, except for most often federally owned property, schools, courthouses, that kind of thing, where it'll have a sign posted, no handguns allowed. So how did I go about getting it? Several times in my life I had thought about getting a handgun, and for some reason, usually money, I didn't get one. Finally, some friends at work told me about a class they were going to, the handgun class, licensing class, and I ended up going, and I was surprised because there was over 30-something people at the class I went to, and I really thought there was only going to be a few people. It was like the dead of winter, and the classroom was packed. It was held at a local rod and gun club type thing. Has an indoor shooting range. Nothing as fancy as I've seen in some of you people's videos, but nevertheless, it's still an indoor range. We live in a small country area of New York State, and yes, there is a small country in New York State. But anyway, I took the course. We were there for 8 hours. The course cost $60. The instructor was very intelligent guy. He travels the United States teaching the classes. He's a champion cowboy shooter, champion this, that. He's very knowledgeable. He brought probably half a dozen handguns of his own, a couple of Kimbers, I know, nice, and some other weapons, and he had revolvers, he had pistols, he had a couple of 1911s. And while we were taking the class, he would pass the guns around, and he had some of the dummy rounds, the snap cap rounds, and we were told to load, unload the guns, get the feel of the gun, rack the slide, which was my first introduction to even touching a handgun, because until that time, really, I'd only touched a shotgun and a rifle. So it was really an intimidating process to hold a handgun, to rack it back, and I was thinking, do I have the strength, and am I going to continue to have the strength to do this? Because after all, I'm no spring chicken, and I have arthritis in my hands. So a lot of that stuff to consider when I went forward with this process. So took the class. Part of it was shooting the guns down in the range. We loaded a gun, unloaded the gun, and we shot 6 rounds, went to the next booth, another kind of gun, loaded it, unloaded it. And when we were all done, and it was all said and done, it was 8 hours the class took, which was a lot longer than it was supposed to, but there were so many of us, and he really gave a lot of personal time to each person. So it was a very informative class. Then with it came a packet. We got our certification of completion. There was a packet for how to proceed to get your license. And one of the things was a questionnaire that you had to fill out. A lot of medical questions. Are you crazy? Did you ever want to kill somebody? No, not really. Those kind of stupid questions. Anyway, continued on, ask questions, fill it out, and then with it was 4 letters of questions that you had to give to 4 people who've known you but are not family. Now, thankfully, the company I work for, I've been there for 20 years, so I have people that have known me 20 years, hopefully. And what it is you give those letters to them, they fill them out. They're supposed to mail them back to the permit bureau, and then you go on from there. So I ended up picking the 4 people. They filled out the letters. I actually waited while they filled them out. The envelopes were there pre-filled out, and all you have to do is slap a stamp on them. Sent those 4 letters in, sent my paperwork in, and then you get a phone call. Wait till you get the call that you go up to Mayville, in my case, and where the county clerk is, in the pistol permit office, and you go up there, they take your picture, they fill out the paper for the background check, you pay for that. I want to say it was $110. They fingerprint you, and then they tell you that they'll process all your paperwork, and you'll be you'll know when it's been approved, not approved, whatever. And I remember at the time, when she finished with my page, she walked over to the table, and there was a stack of paperwork, and she set it on top, and I thought to myself, wow, how many years worth of permits is that? Not years, the month. That stack, and I can tell you at work we have a ream of papers, 250. and a ream of paper, 500 in a ream of paper. So for that high, that was probably 1,000 sheets of paper. And they said that they, during this time, which was a couple of years back when there was a frenzy to get permits, they were getting as many in a month as they had in the prior years. That in New York State, people were going gung-ho getting permits. That it was astronomical numbers coming out and getting the permits. So anyway, after all that paperwork was done, it was basically go home and wait. And wait, I did 9 months. I called a couple of times. They advised you not to bother her because she's inundated with paperwork. However, they said, you know, as we get to the paperwork and the judge sees them and your background checks come back and the letters and blah, blah, blah. So finally, the day came and I got a letter in the mail that said, congratulations, your handgun permit has been approved. And back to Mayville you go to go get it. And it's the card with your picture on it. And the thing about it that was cool that I didn't realize until later is when you buy a gun, they take the card and they put it into a machine and it prints out the information from the gun right onto the card. So every time you go, they throw the card back in the machine, print it up, and it comes out right on the laminated card. It's a cool process. But I know a lot of people said, oh, it's so costly to get a license. I didn't really think it was that costly. It was under $200 for the whole thing. What was costly, however, was the gun. Now this one is Walther P22. It was my first gun, and the reason it's a P22, a 22 altogether, because our instructor said a lot of you are going to gung-ho run out there and get some 45s, 357 Magnums, and he said, but I caution you, unless you have had experience with guns, go with the 22. Number one, the ammo. Now this was before this craziness with the ammo. The ammo was cheaper. So you're going to go through a lot of ammo, learning how to focus, how your stance, how you want to hold it, getting your aim together. It would be very costly if you did that with other type of rounds. So 22 he advised was a good one to go with. It's also until you learn how to feel safe with the gun. So I took his advice, and I had gone with 2 friends. One got a 22 and the other one got a 9mm. But I ended up getting the 9, and I spent probably a year. I read articles, I looked at videos, until I decided that Walther had a good reputation. There's other 22s out there. There was Ruger, and there was 6 Hour, and there was M&W, but S&W. And I decided to go with the Walther. So this one was $469, I think, when I bought it. And like I said, when I first went into the store, I didn't go in to get the Walther. I went in, I was going to get a Ruger. And he said the waiting list for Rugers was close to a year. That's how popular the Rugers were when they came out. And I was like, oh, crap. And then I saw this in the shelf, and I said, wow, that's a good-looking gun. What is that? And he said, it's a Walther. And I said, well, let me see it. And I can tell you, the first time you hold a handgun, for me, it was kind of scary. But I loved it right away. So I ended up buying the Walther P22. And I had the gun for a good year. I took it all shooting, I took it all apart, I watched videos, learned all about it. I changed out the sights and got some nice high-vis sights on the end there. Became very familiar with it. I ended up ordering off of some site that I had found on the internet a couple extra mags. I think they were $30 a piece. I don't know why they're so expensive. Spent a lot of time getting comfortable with this until I knew I was ready, if I was going to be ready, to move up to a different gun. And I did. After, oh geez, I had this for probably almost 2 years. I did the same thing again, researched 9mm, and fell in love with my Springfield XDS. Now this one's the 3.75 9mm, and I had seen this and had read great reviews, and I just really liked the look of this gun. And it took a year. I waited a year before I could buy it. It was not anywhere. Couldn't find it. It was sold out everywhere. Everybody went nuts for this gun too. And finally the day came when the gun store said, hey, we got a XDS 9 in, are you interested? And I said, I'll be there as quick as I can. And man, I love this gun. I was so afraid of it when I first got it. It's a lot heavier than the P22. And again, I ended up getting the gun, spent some time, you know, holding it, carrying it around, taking it apart, before I ever even got to the range to shoot it. And got to the range, loved it, shot it, and I'm still, you know, it's still new to it. I only just got it in December. So less than a dozen times I've taken it out shooting. So I'm still getting used to her, which is why my target kind of looks funny still. I'm still trying to figure out the aim on it, which I have bad vision too. So I have to get all my excuses lined up for why I don't always blow out that target. But anyway, so now I'm comfortable with this, and I actually have still people coming up to me that want to ask me questions about the guns. The license is kind of self-explanatory. You can go on any internet site and look up how to get you know, your handgun license. But the thing about the gun, my advice to anybody who's thinking of it, really, don't go out there and buy a bazooka. Go out there and get something small till you understand the functioning of it, what it feels like. Your attitude changes the minute you become a gun owner. And I feel that you become more responsible, you become more aware of your surroundings, you become more of an advocate for gun safety by how you are safe with your own guns. So yeah, these are not toys. They stay locked up unless I'm home, and one of them stays out with a loaded magazine, because that was one of the reasons why I got a gun, was the fear of in-home invasion. So I wanted to be protected, because I do live alone. So I would tell people to get the 22 first, get very familiar with it, get comfortable with it before you move on to another gun. Not everybody's gonna have to do that. Some people are gonna come right out of the gates, rip roaring, and go out and get an AK. And that's fine for you guys. But for me, the older broad, anybody like me, that's a little intimidated by guns and has no one but themselves to go through this process, I would say get the 22 before you move on to any other caliber, and get your hands on any information, books, magazines, the internet, other people who own guns. Great source of help to learn how to find your way in the world of guns. And it really is just, I love it. People say, why do you want to have a gun? And I say, unless you've shot one and you get the thrill that I do, then you wouldn't understand. I don't like bingo. I don't go to bingo, but I do go to the range, and I do shoot a gun. I love it. Thanks for watching.